Akkad emerged in central Mesopotamia. Rivers shaped its destiny and strength. Civilization awakened under scorching desert skies. How did this land ignite ancient power? By 2334 BCE, momentum began rising. Tribes, cities, and cultures slowly converged. A new force stirred the cradle. What signaled the birth of an empire? Sargon rose from humble, forgotten origins. A nobody became history's first legend. His ambition eclipsed rulers before him. How did one man rewrite destiny? He seized power with fearless determination. Battles forged his authority and reputation. Allies gathered beneath his rising banner. What fueled this unstoppable transformation? Sumerian city-states fell under Akkadian rule. Rival kings surrendered power and pride. Fragmented regions formed a single realm. How did unity finally overcome centuries? This unification reshaped politics and society. Trade expanded across once hostile borders. Shared systems strengthened cultural development everywhere. What opportunities emerged from sudden unity? Akkad became a thriving central hub. Artists carved stories into enduring stone. Language and administration reached new heights. Why did this city dominate so completely? Political control spread through structured governance. Officials enforced Sargon's authority across lands. Empire building gained form and direction here. How did early systems inspire future kingdoms? The world witnessed imperial governance begin. Power concentrated unlike anything before. Strategies shaped models for later empires. What lessons echoed through ancient centuries? Human history entered a transformative chapter. Akkad proved unity could build greatness. Empire replaced isolated city-state traditions. How did this moment change everything forever? Gentle sunlight rose over ancient plains. Soft winds moved across untouched earth. Rivers shimmered beneath awakening skies. Life gathered quietly beside flowing waters. Families followed riverbanks seeking shelter. Fertile soil promised harvest and survival. Early settlers built homes with determination. Hope anchored deeply within fertile lands. Tigris carried strength through rushing currents. Euphrates whispered calm through gentle bends. Together they shaped emerging human destiny. Their waters nourished every early settlement. Communities learned river moods with patience. Seasonal floods taught lessons of survival. Nature offered gifts and unpredictable trials. People adapted through resilience and unity. Villages formed along nourishing silt fields. Mud brick homes rose beside shared hearths. Evening fires warmed families and stories. River winds carried whispers of belonging. Farmers planted seeds with steady rhythm. Grains sprouted under sun-drenched skies. Harvest cycles mapped their growing calendar. Rivers sustained every effort toward prosperity. Hunters traveled across wide open plains. Gatherers collected fruits from wild groves. Meals brought families together each night. Life followed nature's dependable patterns. Trade began along narrow river paths. Small caravans exchanged food and tools. Merchants connected distant rural pockets. Rivers guided every journey across regions. Irrigation channels redirected flowing strength. Fields flourished under careful human planning. Water shaped order from shifting landscapes. Agriculture transformed survival into stability. Communities built early systems of governance. Elders guided disputes with practiced judgment. Shared decisions strengthened fragile settlements. Unity protected villages from wandering threats. Children listened to ancient river tales. Stories preserved memory across generations. Ancestral wisdom shaped worldview and identity. Myths explained nature's powerful temperament. Rivers became sacred guardians of existence. Offerings honored flowing life-giving forces. Prayers echoed softly beside peaceful waters. Devotion tied people to their environment. Season after season strengthened community bonds. Paths connected farms with distant outposts. Knowledge traveled through constant cooperation. Settlement life grew firm along fertile banks. These humble beginnings shaped future greatness. Every home contributed to rising civilization. Akkad's roots deepened through shared endurance. An empire began forming beside ancient rivers. Sumerian cities glimmered across fertile south. Temple towers rose toward glowing horizons. Akkadians watched brilliance from distant plains. Curiosity shaped their earliest cultural steps. Southern scribes preserved knowledge with precision. Clay tablets carried stories across regions. Akkadians welcomed wisdom of skilled scholars. Ideas blended into forming northern identity. Trade caravans crossed borders with offerings. Goods traveled alongside exchange traditions. Languages mingled through daily interactions. Speech evolved through constant cultural contact. Sumerian myths reached northern villages slowly. Deities journeyed through stories and rituals. Beliefs intertwined across gathering communities. Spiritual landscapes blended into shared heritage. Artisans studied southern architectural designs. Brick temples inspired northern sacred spaces. Columns echoed styles of distant masters. Akkad reshaped borrowed beauty into identity. Music drifted from festivals across borders. Instruments brought melodies of ancient Sumer. Akkadian gatherings adopted rhythmic celebrations. Songs stitched cultures into unified harmony. Agricultural techniques traveled through farmers. Irrigation knowledge strengthened northern harvests. Shared tools refined seasonal working methods. Prosperity grew from cross-cultural cooperation. Craft patterns revealed hybrid artistic roots. Pottery carried symbols from both civilizations. Weavers blended motifs across woven textiles. Art became testament to shared human creativity. Mathematics crossed through scholarly exchange. Number systems shaped markets and trade routes. Accounting improved administrative efficiency. Logic strengthened foundations of early governance. Sumerian laws inspired local leadership forms. Elders observed balanced urban institutions. Political structures matured through adaptation. Order stabilized growing northern communities. Children learned stories from proud worlds. Lessons shaped future merchants and leaders. School traditions reflected blended customs. Education forged identity through shared wisdom. Festivals honored gods from both traditions. Offerings displayed unity between old neighbors. Ceremonies bridged cultural distances gracefully. Faith connected hearts across fertile plains. Migrating craftsmen carried skills northward. Their talents shaped rising Akkadian workshops. Collective knowledge enriched every settlement. Progress flourished through diverse contributions. Cultural blending strengthened early Akkadian roots. Borrowed knowledge became foundation of identity. Unity formed through respectful shared exchange. An empire began through merging ancient worlds. Caravans moved slowly along dusty paths. Merchants carried goods to distant villages. Rivers guided traders through fertile lands. Commerce shaped lives of growing Akkad. Farmers brought barley for city markets. Grains traveled packed in woven baskets. Dates and vegetables exchanged with neighbors. Agriculture fueled early commercial expansion. Craftsmen produced tools from polished stone. Pottery reflected skill of patient artisans. Cloth woven with patterns traveled far. Handmade goods spread identity across regions. Metal workers forged bronze into sharp implements. Copper arrived from distant western lands. Tin crossed mountains to blend into alloys. Weapons and tools advanced Akkadian technology. Trade paths stretched across deserts and hills. Caravans connected villages with distant cities. Markets thrived on barter and negotiation. Commerce became lifeblood of growing settlements. Riverboats carried heavy loads downstream. Fishermen's catches supplied bustling marketplaces. Trade linked water routes with land roads. Goods moved efficiently along flowing rivers. Livestock traveled carefully across open plains. Sheep and cattle exchanged among neighboring towns. Animal trade supported both economy and survival. Pastoral networks strengthened rural community bonds. Resin and timber came from northern forests. Stone and clay supplied building materials. All resources found purpose within settlements. Trade unified distant environmental regions efficiently. Artisans displayed wares at local gatherings. Markets filled with colorful crafted treasures. Communities exchanged goods and cultural knowledge. Traditions traveled alongside tangible commercial products. Merchants learned multiple languages for negotiation. Communication eased tension between diverse traders. Agreements ensured safety along long routes. Trust became cornerstone of ancient commerce. Currency evolved slowly through metal tokens. Accounting recorded trade and land transactions. Mathematics supported markets and economic planning. Precision enabled growth of urban centers. Trade networks strengthened political alliances quietly. Shared resources encouraged cooperation among villages. Exchange reduced conflicts over scarce commodities. Prosperity arose through mutual dependency. Seasons determined flow of trade caravans. Harvest cycles timed exchanges and barter fairs. Merchants adapted routes to natural changes. Commerce mirrored rhythms of Akkadian life. Every trade route shaped cultural awareness. Knowledge, beliefs, and customs traveled with goods. Connections fostered understanding across wide lands. Early Akkad grew stronger through active exchange. These networks laid foundation for empire, wealth, influence, and culture spread steadily. Akkadian society thrived on connectivity and trade. Civilization expanded across rivers and plains. Early scribes pressed marks into clay. Stylus carved shapes representing spoken words. Symbols recorded trade, harvests, and laws. Cuneiform spread knowledge across growing Akkad. Tables held accounts of grains and livestock. Merchants documented every sale and exchange. Farmers' yields were written on tablets. Records preserved wealth for generations ahead. Administrators managed villages through careful notes. Letters crossed distances to distant settlements. Instructions traveled safely on hardened clay. Governance depended on written communication. Scribes trained in schools of disciplined learning. Children memorized symbols with patient repetition. Knowledge passed down through dedicated practice. Literacy became foundation of organized society. Cuneiform shaped contracts between merchants carefully. Agreements ensured fairness and reduced disputes. Trade thrived through reliable written agreements. Record-keeping strengthened trust across trading networks. Religious texts documented rituals and prayers. Temples preserved hymns for future generations. Deities' deeds recorded with intricate symbols. Faith intertwined with early written language. Historical events chronicled on clay tablets. Kings' achievements and battles preserved clearly. Future generations learned from past successes. Memory transcended time through careful writing. Legal codes guided justice across city-states. Laws regulated property, commerce, and conduct. Cuneiform ensured accountability in every decision. Justice became transparent through written authority. Letters traveled between distant rulers slowly. Messages carried diplomacy and urgent instructions. Correspondence strengthened alliances across vast lands. Written words bridged political and social gaps. Cuneiform enabled complex administration efficiently. Population, land, and resource management relied on it. Record-keeping shaped structure of growing empire. Information became the backbone of power. Artisans inscribed symbols with meticulous precision. Symbols evolved over time into abstract forms. Clay tablets survived centuries of harsh conditions. Written language became enduring witness of civilization. Libraries stored thousands of cuneiform records. Knowledge accumulated across generations without loss. Learning spread through teachers and apprentices. Education became structured through documented wisdom. Scribes became vital to political authority. Their skill maintained order across expanding territories. Cuneiform bridged spoken and recorded knowledge. Empires relied on these symbols for stability. Cuneiform connected people across distance and time. Information traveled beyond immediate village borders. Early Akkad advanced through shared written memory. Communication became foundation of organized society. This script shaped civilization permanently. Written words guided trade, faith, and law. Akkadian society thrived through enduring cuneiform. Knowledge endured, forming empire's backbone forever. Temples rose proudly along fertile riverbanks. Sacred fires flickered through quiet stone halls. Priests guided rituals for community devotion. Faith anchored daily life and social order. Deities reflected forces of nature clearly. Storms, rivers, and harvests held divine power. Villagers sought blessings through offerings and prayers. Every act of life honored unseen spirits. Akkadians adopted Sumerian gods carefully. Local deities merged with southern spiritual traditions. Epics told stories of combined divine forces. Legends guided morality across growing settlements. Festivals celebrated gods with music and dance. Communities gathered under shimmering temple lights. Songs echoed across stone courtyards peacefully. Rituals strengthened bonds between people and divinity. Priests recorded omens in clay tablets. Celestial events predicted fate and fortune. Interpretation guided rulers and merchants' decisions. Religion shaped governance alongside written records. Statues represented gods in grand temples. Carved faces watched over daily worshippers. Offerings placed before idols expressed gratitude. Faith became tangible through crafted sacred forms. Sacred spaces became centers of communal life. Markets and gatherings surrounded holy precincts. People exchanged goods after ritual ceremonies. Religious life intertwined with economy and society. Divine hierarchy mirrored earthly leadership structures. Kings ruled as chosen of powerful gods. Laws and rituals reinforced moral expectations. Authority drew strength from spiritual legitimacy. Prayer ceremonies marked seasons and harvest cycles. Songs and chants honored fertility and abundance. Communities prepared offerings before planting and harvest. Faith guided work, growth, and survival patterns. Children learned myths about God's great deeds. Stories shaped moral understanding and cultural identity. Lessons passed orally through family and teachers. Tradition maintained unity across generations peacefully. Temples served as schools and administrative centers. Scribes recorded donations and sacred accounts carefully. Knowledge combined religious and civic responsibilities. Faith integrated with daily governance efficiently. God's influence extended to trade and diplomacy. Caravans traveled seeking protection from divine powers. All aspects of life reflected spiritual reverence. Religion became inseparable from Akkadian identity. Prayer sought protection against disease and misfortune. Communities relied on divine guidance for survival. Healing rituals merged belief with practical knowledge. Faith offered comfort amidst uncertain natural forces. Integration of deities strengthened cultural cohesion. Local and foreign gods formed unified pantheon. Shared worship created communal understanding and order. Akkadian civilization thrived under combined spiritual guidance. Through ritual, myth, and temple life, religion shaped values, governance, and daily practice. Deities guided empire from early settlements' rise. Faith became enduring thread in Akkad's story. Dust rose over northern Mesopotamian plains. Sargon led armies with careful precision. Soldiers marched across rivers and valleys. Destiny awaited through fierce confrontations. Warriors trained tirelessly under blazing sun. Spears and shields gleamed in morning light. Strategic plans guided each deadly encounter. Conquest depended on discipline and courage. Northern city-states faced unexpected aggression. Walls trembled under relentless Akkadian assault. Rivers echoed with cries of resistance. Villages fell as armies pressed forward. Sargon moved swiftly through fertile lands. Every campaign carefully timed with seasons. Soldiers crossed marshes and winding rivers. Tactics blended skill with ruthless determination. Southern cities prepared for incoming threat. Temples and walls stood tall but fragile. Citizens watched armies approach in silent fear. Power shifted as strategy overrode defenses. Alliances formed and broke across Mesopotamia. Some rulers surrendered to preserve lives. Others resisted fiercely despite certain defeat. Every victory strengthened Sargon's growing reputation. Communication ensured armies remained coordinated effectively. Messengers carried orders across vast distances. Sieges relied on speed and clever maneuvering. Planning became key to expanding empire boundaries. Troops adapted to diverse landscapes continuously. Marshes, deserts, and plains tested endurance. Logistics managed supply and weapon distribution. Every challenge met with calculated precision. Siege engines battered city gates relentlessly. Walls crumbled under overwhelming Akkadian forces. Victory brought tribute and subdued population. Fear spread as empire expanded steadily. Sargon's reputation inspired both loyalty and dread. Conquered leaders pledged allegiance cautiously. Cities integrated into emerging imperial structure. Governance followed military success across lands. Soldiers returned home carrying tales of glory. Songs celebrated campaigns in local villages. Bards narrated victories for young and old. Legends of conquest spread across fertile plains. Each campaign strengthened central authority firmly. Rebellions crushed swiftly with decisive force. Empire boundaries expanded north and south. Power radiated outward from military triumphs. Strategic fortresses secured important river crossings. Rivers became arteries of military supply. Every settlement carefully fortified against revolt. Sargon ensured control through disciplined presence. Through relentless campaigns, Mesopotamia bowed slowly. Northern and southern lands unified under Akkad. Sargon emerged as unrivaled master of conquest. Empire formed through vision, strategy, and courage. Akkad rose along the Tigris banks. Sunlight glimmered on newly laid streets. Brick and mud formed structured city walls. The heart of empire began taking shape. Palaces stretched across central urban plazas. King's chambers watched over bustling courtyards. Administrative offices organized cities' growing functions. Scribes recorded every decree meticulously on clay. Markets flourished within protected city walls. Merchants brought grains, pottery, and crafted goods. Trade routes converged at this vibrant hub. Akkad became a beacon of wealth and power. Temples honored gods of northern and southern lands. Priests conducted rituals in ornate sacred halls. Divine presence guided governance and civic life. Faith intertwined with political authority deeply. Roads linked Akkad to distant provincial cities. Caravans carried tribute, trade, and information. Strategic fortifications protected imperial supply lines. Infrastructure ensured control across sprawling regions. Residential quarters housed officials and workers efficiently. Streets buzzed with artisans, merchants, and servants. Neighborhoods reflected organized city planning clearly. Population grew steadily under central imperial guidance. Waterways supplied fresh river water throughout Akkad. Irrigation channels maintained surrounding fertile fields. Rivers enabled transport of goods and messages. City thrived alongside natural life-giving currents. Fortified walls displayed strength to potential invaders. Guard towers overlooked expansive urban landscapes. Military presence reinforced security and imperial order. Akkad projected power across Mesopotamian plains. Scribes documented laws, taxes, and city records. Knowledge preserved decisions of kings and governors. Every administrative act supported empire's stability. Writing linked governance with centralized authority. Palaces showcased monumental architecture proudly. Stone and brick reflected emerging imperial ambition. Courtyards hosted ceremonies and gatherings publicly. Akkad represented unity of conquered northern and southern lands. Cultural activities thrived alongside political governance. Artists and musicians enriched cities' daily life. Schools trained scribes and administrators for empire. Education reinforced loyalty and administrative efficiency. Akkad became a symbol of Sargon's vision. Capital radiated influence across Mesopotamia gradually. It centralized power, culture, and trade strategically. Empire consolidated under this thriving central hub through urban planning, religion, and governance. Akkad stood as the heart of empire. Its foundation marked a turning point clearly. Power flowed from city to distant lands. Sargon built a structured governing framework. Officials oversaw towns, villages, and settlements. Authority radiated outward from imperial center. Orders flowed clearly through defined channels. Scribes recorded contributions meticulously on clay. Every village paid tribute to Akkad. Grain, livestock, and crafted goods collected. Taxes ensured resources, supported imperial administration. Local governors implemented Sargon's decrees precisely. Officials coordinated labor for state projects. Irrigation, roads, and walls were maintained. Central authority ensured efficiency and loyalty. Tributary cities reported regularly to capital. Inspectors monitored compliance and recorded accounts. Violations met strict but fair consequences. Governance maintained order across diverse lands. Administration linked military, economy, and religion. Command extended from king to local officials. Every region contributed to empire's stability. Hierarchical structure strengthened Sargon's centralized control. Officials trained scribes for accurate record-keeping. Clay tablets documented land, population, and resources. Records ensured taxes and labor were collected. Accountability reinforced authority across every province. Labor levies supported monumental construction projects. Roads, canals, and temples arose systematically. Workers provided service as part of tribute. Administration organized human and material resources efficiently. Military posts integrated into administrative networks. Soldiers ensured compliance in distant towns. Fortresses safeguarded trade routes and settlements. Centralized control extended across open plains. Religious institutions supported administrative authority closely. Priests recorded offerings and temple revenues. Faith and governance reinforced each other. Sacred duties validated political hierarchy consistently. Taxation supported army, infrastructure, and court. Wealth flowed steadily into imperial coffers. Surplus redistributed to maintain loyalty. Economy strengthened through organized fiscal policy. Officials arbitrated disputes and maintained justice. Local leaders acted as intermediaries carefully. Governance balanced imperial demands with local needs. Administration maintained harmony across culturally diverse populations. Communication networks ensured rapid transmission of orders. Messengers carried reports between capital and provinces. Scribes transcribed messages accurately for kings. Central authority remained informed across vast distances. Standard procedures applied uniformly across empire. Weights, measures, and records maintained consistency. Uniform administration reduced conflicts and inefficiencies. Empire functioned through clear rules and organization. Taxation reinforced loyalty through predictable obligations. Citizens understood duties and expectations clearly. Compliance supported stability and imperial legitimacy. Akkad thrived under systematic centralized administration through bureaucracy, tribute, and oversight. Sargon secured power across conquered territories. Empire relied on organization as foundation. Central administration became key to enduring rule. Sargon established uniform weights across empire. Merchants measured grains with precise instruments. Trade became reliable between distant cities. Consistency strengthened confidence in market systems. Standard measures ensured fair exchanges everywhere. Barley, wool, and metals accounted carefully. Every transaction followed recognized imperial rules. Disputes over quantity were minimized effectively. Scales balanced accurately on clay platforms. Traders relied on official measurement units. Markets flourished through predictable, transparent practices. Commerce extended across northern and southern lands. Standardized lengths guided construction and farming. Irrigation canals measured for optimal efficiency. Fields divided according to fixed dimensions. Architecture relied on uniform planning techniques. Weights and measures recorded by trained scribes. Clay tablets documented quantities and transactions. Officials inspected trades for compliance regularly. Regulation ensured economic stability and growth. Trade routes connected cities and villages securely. Merchants transported goods with standard accountability. Uniform practices simplified taxation and tribute. Empire benefited from efficient resource management. Standardization strengthened Akkadian political authority. Citizens accepted rules as fair and consistent. Order and predictability reinforced loyalty to Sargon. Unity emerged through shared economic framework. Craftsmen produced goods to regulated specifications. Pottery, textiles, and tools maintained consistent quality. Standard measures enhanced exchange across vast distances. Artisans adhered to imperial guidelines strictly. Weights were symbols of imperial power. Standardization became visible throughout marketplaces. Merchants recognized authority through uniform systems. Trade depended on clear, enforceable rules. Scribes trained to record every measurement. Clay tablets preserved official standards permanently. Documentation reduced confusion and potential corruption. Empire maintained control through consistent oversight. Trade regulations promoted harmonious city relations. Neighboring regions trusted Akkadian commerce framework. Conflicts diminished as expectations became transparent. Stability emerged through predictable economic interaction. Legal enforcement supported uniform trade practices. Officials imposed penalties for fraudulent merchants. Every market reflected imperial authority clearly. Regulations safeguarded prosperity across diverse territories. Through standardization, Akkad connected distant communities. Commerce united northern and southern lands efficiently. Empire thrived through organized economic networks. Sargon's policies strengthened administration and loyalty. Weights, measures, and regulations shaped civilization. Trade became backbone of empire's power. Economic order ensured growth and societal cohesion. Uniformity fostered confidence across Mesopotamia. Successfully, Sargon encouraged Akkadian across imperial administration. Scribes recorded laws in native Akkadian script. Official correspondence shifted from southern Sumerian influence. Language became tool of centralized power. Temples adopted Akkadian alongside sacred Sumerian. Rituals were recited in combined languages. Priests taught young scribes both traditions. Faith and governance united through shared speech. Trade and commerce relied on Akkadian vocabulary. Merchants learned terms for weights and measures. Standardized language improved clarity of transactions. Communication strengthened networks across distant regions. Education embraced bilingual instruction for scribes. Children mastered Sumerian and Akkadian scripts. Knowledge passed across generations through dual literacy. Language became bridge for administration and culture. Diplomacy utilized Akkadian to reach allies. Messages conveyed clearly through written tablets. Sumerian remained in literary and religious texts. Two languages coexisted for continuity and stability. Historical records favored Akkadian for official purposes. King's decrees inscribed in native dialects. Legacy preserved through enduring written documentation. Empire projected authority through language systematically. Poets and storytellers embraced Akkadian vocabulary. Epics celebrated kings and divine achievements. Sumerian influence enriched literary style. Stories traveled across empire in dual languages. Standardization of language reinforced imperial unity. Regional dialects gradually merged into formal Akkadian. Cultural identity strengthened through shared communication. Governance benefited from clarity in administration. Scribes trained in both scripts meticulously. Clay tablets documented trade, laws, and rituals. Bilingual literacy became essential for career advancement. Knowledge spread effectively across administrative networks. Akkadian replaced Sumerian in court proceedings gradually. Officials conducted trials and negotiations fluently. Laws written in common tongue ensured understanding. Language strengthened legitimacy of Sargon's rule. Schools promoted reading and writing in Akkadian. Students memorized symbols and grammatical structures. Practical use reinforced official and daily communication. Empire relied on language for cohesion. Messages, treaties, and proclamations adopted Akkadian. Sumerian maintained spiritual and literary prestige. Two languages coexisted across administrative and cultural spheres. Dual linguistic system ensured smooth governance. Through promotion of Akkadian, identity solidified. Official language became symbol of unity. Communication bridged diverse regions under imperial rule. Empire endured through shared words and understanding. Sargon appointed governors to oversee provinces. Each entity managed towns with firm authority. Local matters resolved under their careful guidance. Central power extended through trusted representatives. Governors maintained law and collected tribute. Villages reported directly to provincial officials. Order spread outward from Akkad's heart. Empire relied on disciplined, provincial oversight. Entity supervised agriculture and irrigation systems. Farmers followed directives for planting and harvest. Canals and fields thrived under structured management. Productivity supported population and imperial stability. Officials monitored trade within each province carefully. Merchants reported goods transported along key routes. Markets operated with rules from central authority. Economic activity strengthened both local and empire. Military posts remained under provincial governance. Entity coordinated soldiers for defense and control. Fortresses secured boundaries against rebellious towns. Provincial authority reinforced imperial dominance constantly. Religious observances remained tied to local leadership. Priests reported activities to governors periodically. Faith and governance intertwined in daily life. Entity balanced devotion with administrative duties. Dispute resolution passed through governors' oversight. Civil conflicts addressed with fairness and authority. Courts maintained order across villages and towns. Governance ensured loyalty and minimized unrest consistently. Entity communicated regularly with Akkad's central government. Reports on resources, population, and security traveled. Central administration remained informed about every province. Coordination linked distant regions into unified empire. Governors maintained records of taxes and labor. Scribes documented all economic and civic activities. Clay tablets preserved history of provincial management. Accountability reinforced confidence in imperial administration. Public works thrived under local supervision. Roads, temples, and canals constructed efficiently. Communities benefited from organized labor systems. Infrastructure symbolized empire's reach and order. Appointments ensured governors were loyal to Sargon. Trusted officials held power over provincial populations. Merit and allegiance maintained smooth administration. Empire depended on capable and committed leaders. Provincial governance connected citizens with central authority. Villagers understood obligations and rights clearly. Communication reinforced obedience across diverse cultures. Governance fostered cohesion throughout Mesopotamian lands. Military campaigns relied on ENSI coordination closely. Troops stationed in provinces followed clear directives. Defense and conquest integrated with local administration. Power projected efficiently through hierarchical structure. Through appointed governors, Sargon strengthened empire. Local administration became backbone of imperial rule. Order and efficiency spread across conquered territories. Provincial oversight ensured stability and sustainable growth. Sargon built a structured royal bureaucracy. Officials managed distant provinces with careful oversight. Authority flowed from king to appointed ministers. Empire functioned through organized administrative hierarchy. Scribes documented laws, taxes, and tributes. Clay tablets preserved every official decree. Record-keeping ensured efficiency and accountability. Information traveled across regions with precision. Bureaucrats coordinated trade, resources, and labor. Markets operated smoothly under their supervision. Agriculture and craft production followed standardized procedures. Empire relied on effective organization for stability. Royal administrators monitored provincial governors closely. Reports submitted regularly to central authorities. Decisions reinforced loyalty and efficient governance. Communication connected remote towns with Akkad's heart. Bureaucracy ensured military forces were coordinated. Troops stationed far from the capital received orders. Fortresses and outposts reported through official channels. Control extended seamlessly across vast territories. Officials trained scribes in record-keeping techniques. Knowledge passed through generations of administrators. Professional training created consistency across provinces. Empire strengthened through educated and skilled personnel. Religious institutions integrated with bureaucratic oversight. Temple offerings and accounts reported to officials. Faith-supported governance through organized documentation. Priests and scribes collaborated for accurate records. Tribute collection relied on bureaucratic precision. Taxes converted into resources for army and projects. Bureaucrats verified contributions and documented compliance. Empire thrived on systematic extraction of wealth. Legal matters passed through structured channels. Judges and scribes recorded civil disputes carefully. Codified procedures ensured fairness across regions. Bureaucracy maintained order and minimized local unrest. Royal messengers carried decrees to distant settlements. Information traveled quickly through coordinated networks. Governors and officials implemented policies efficiently. Empire depended on rapid, reliable communication. Bureaucracy oversaw construction of infrastructure projects. Roads, canals, and temples maintained through administration. Labor coordinated to meet centralized plans precisely. Civil engineering showcased imperial, organizational power. Officials evaluated provincial performance systematically. Rewards and penalties ensured loyalty and diligence. Governance became predictable, fair, and effective. Empire functioned through structure and disciplined administration. Through royal bureaucracy, Akkad united diverse lands. Information, authority, and resources flowed seamlessly. Governance reached even the most distant corners. Empire relied on skilled officials for stability. Sargon ordered laws to be written clearly. Scribes inscribed rules on durable clay tablets. Regulations guided behavior across towns and cities. Justice became visible through formalized decrees. Laws governed trade, property, and labor fairly. Merchants and farmers understood expected conduct. Disputes resolved according to written guidelines. Uniformity reduced conflicts among growing populations. Crimes were defined with specific consequences. Theft, assault, and fraud faced punishment. Legal codes protected citizens and imperial property. Order ensured through clearly documented statutes. Judges interpreted laws with careful attention. Disputes passed through local courts consistently. Decisions reinforced authority of central administration. Fair governance strengthened loyalty to Akkad. Social hierarchy reflected in legal codification. Nobles, officials, and commoners followed defined rights. Privileges and duties were recorded explicitly. Law maintained balance across diverse communities. Family and inheritance matters regulated systematically. Property transfers documented in written contracts. Marriage, adoption, and succession followed clear rules. Stability ensured through legal transparency and structure. Religious law integrated with secular regulations carefully. Priests recorded rituals and temple obligations. Faith reinforced social cohesion and obedience. Law and religion strengthened community stability. Tribute and taxation were regulated by law. Officials collected resources according to codified rules. Uniform procedures prevented abuse and corruption. Empire maintained economic order and fairness. Labor requirements clearly defined by statutes. Workers contributed to construction and irrigation projects. Compliance enforced by provincial administrators consistently. Infrastructure projects benefited from organized legal oversight. Punishments ranged from fines to corporal measures. Severity depended on crime and social status. Justice applied predictably across urban and rural areas. Law preserved authority while protecting citizen rights. Legal records stored in temples and archives. Scribes documented rulings for a future reference. Codification ensured consistency across provinces and generations. Knowledge traveled through trained administrative officials. Trade disputes followed documented legal procedures. Merchants understood contractual obligations clearly. Markets operated efficiently under codified rules. Economic stability reinforced social cohesion across empire. Military conduct regulated under codified guidelines. Soldiers obeyed orders and respected property rights. Commanders ensured discipline and accountability systematically. Law strengthened internal cohesion of imperial forces. Through codification, Sargon unified diverse populations. Legal clarity became backbone of Akkadian governance. Social order flourished under standardized, written law. Empire thrived on fairness, clarity, and justice. Sargon demanded tribute from conquered provinces. Grain, livestock, and crafted goods delivered regularly. Resources flowed steadily to imperial administration. Empire depended on tribute for strength and expansion. Provincial governors organized local collections efficiently. Scribes recorded contributions on clay tablets. Every city reported its allotted share. Accountability ensured by meticulous documentation. Tribute supported the growing Akkadian army. Weapons, armor, and provisions supplied through collections. Troops stationed in distant provinces received essentials. Military campaigns strengthened empire's control consistently. Public works projects relied on regular tribute. Canals, roads, and temples built systematically. Labor coordinated alongside material contributions. Infrastructure demonstrated empire's organization and power. Collectors traveled throughout villages and towns. Communities submitted offerings according to prescribed schedules. Compliance reinforced loyalty and prevented rebellion. Tribute became symbol of imperial authority. Surplus goods stored in central granaries carefully. Reserves maintained stability during poor harvests. Economic planning relied on predictable contributions. Empire thrived through organized resource management. Artisans received materials for crafting official projects. Potters, weavers, and metal workers utilized collected resources. Quality goods supplied royal palaces and temples. Tribute fueled both economy and cultural development. Religious offerings formed part of tribute system. Temples received gifts alongside military and civic resources. Faith reinforced loyalty to king and empire. Rituals legitimized extraction of goods peacefully. Inspectors ensured honesty in tribute collection. Fraud or underreporting met swift consequences. Accuracy maintained stability between provinces and capital. Central authority monitored local administration diligently. Caravans transported tribute across rivers and roads. Logistics coordinated supply chains efficiently. Rivers and land routes connected city-states. Empire benefited from reliable distribution networks. Tribute funded urban expansion and city improvements. Public spaces, markets, and fortifications constructed. Communities experienced tangible benefits of contributions. People recognized value of organized governance. Military campaigns and public works reinforced each other. Strong army protected infrastructure and trade routes. Empire expanded under centralized resource management. Growth depended on disciplined and loyal provinces. Regular tribute fostered economic interdependence among regions. Provinces contributed to empire's shared prosperity. Communication and oversight ensured smooth operation. Sargon's system maintained power through resource control. Through tribute, empire sustained stability and expansion. Resources flowed to strengthen defense and culture. Akkad thrived as centralized administration collected efficiently. Empire endured through organized wealth and labor. Messengers traveled swiftly along dusty roads. Orders from Sargon reached distant provinces. Information flowed reliably through organized routes. Empire maintained control across vast territories. Riverboats carried tablets along flowing waters. Messages traveled faster than footed couriers. Caravans linked cities and strategic fortresses. Communication ensured cohesion throughout Akkad's lands. Scribes recorded every decree and report. Clay tablets preserved official instructions carefully. Officials read, interpreted, and implemented policies. Accuracy reinforced authority from capital to provinces. Postal stations facilitated rest and exchange. Riders changed horses to maintain speed. Distant settlements remained informed of royal commands. Network efficiency strengthened central governance steadily. Tribute reports sent regularly to Akkad. Scribes documented quantities of goods and labor. Governors maintained accountability through constant communication. Administration depended on timely, reliable updates. Military dispatches ensured coordinated defense efficiently. Fortresses received orders to respond promptly. Troops stationed across provinces acted in unison. Empire relied on structured command through communication. Trade regulations and legal matters transmitted rapidly. Merchants and officials understood standardized policies clearly. Central authority reached every marketplace and town. Commerce operated smoothly through coordinated messaging. Religious decrees traveled to temples and priests. Festivals, offerings, and rituals followed royal instructions. Faith aligned with governance through consistent communication. Cultural unity reinforced across diverse communities. Maps, routes, and messengers formed vital network. Roads and waterways connected remote settlements systematically. Network facilitated rapid administrative, military, and economic functions. Empire functioned efficiently across challenging landscapes. Inspectors and provincial officials exchanged critical reports. Problems identified quickly. Solutions implemented immediately. Central administration remained informed of all events. Empire prevented delays and misunderstandings effectively. Scribes trained new generations in transmission methods. Documentation preserved consistency and continuity in governance. Knowledge passed seamlessly between capital and provinces. Efficiency strengthened Sargon's administrative and military control. Messages announced victories, appointments, and policy changes. Public and officials remained aware of empire's actions. Communication projected power and reinforced obedience. Information became backbone of Akkad's enduring rule. Through organized networks, distant regions stayed connected. Coordination allowed rapid response to rebellion or threat. Empire expanded while maintaining efficient oversight. Sargon's system ensured unity across vast territories. Communication networks became a lifeline of imperial power. Information linked citizens, governors, and military consistently. Akkad thrived through structured and reliable messaging. Empire endured through organization, speed, and clarity. Temples blended Sumerian and Akkadian deities. Priests performed rituals honoring multiple gods. Faith created continuity across conquered lands. Belief systems intertwined to strengthen social cohesion. Akkadians adopted myths from southern city-states. Legends traveled north through trade and migration. Stories of gods guided moral behavior. Religious narratives unified diverse populations gradually. Sumerian and Akkadian festivals merged over time. Songs, dances, and offerings combined traditions. Communities celebrated shared rituals together harmoniously. Ceremonies reinforced loyalty to king and deities. Divine hierarchy mirrored political authority subtly. Kings ruled was chosen of powerful gods. Priests advised rulers on spiritual and civic matters. Religion validated and reinforced imperial power. Temples became centers of cultural exchange actively. Art, music, and literacy flourished alongside devotion. Scribes recorded offerings and sacred myths. Knowledge preserved spiritual heritage across generations. Gods were represented in statues and carvings. Iconography reflected blended cultural and spiritual influences. Worshippers connected with familiar and adopted divinities. Shared symbols fostered unity throughout the empire. Ritual practices varied between regions carefully. Local customs integrated into standardized ceremonies. Akkad respected traditions while asserting imperial identity. Faith became a tool for social stability. Priests instructed young scribes in dual traditions. Education passed down both Sumerian and Akkadian knowledge. Oral storytelling preserved myths for future generations. Transmission ensured continuity despite political expansion. Religious festivals aligned with agricultural and civic calendars. Seasonal observances guided planting and harvest cycles. Communities synchronized worship and practical activities. Faith became inseparable from daily life and work. Sacred texts recorded hymns and prayers consistently. Clay tablets preserved rituals and divine decrees. Scribes documented offerings and temple accounts. Administration relied on religion for legitimacy and order. Integration strengthened loyalty of provincial populations. Citizens respected gods from both ancestral cultures. Shared faith reduced resistance to central authority. Empire maintained cohesion through spiritual synthesis. Architectural styles reflected combined religious influences. Ziggurats incorporated northern and southern design elements. Temples symbolized cultural blending and imperial vision. Structures became focal points of communal identity. Divine myths justified social hierarchy clearly. Kings and nobles claimed mandate of heaven. Priests mediated between rulers and people respectfully. Religion reinforced governance and societal structure. Through combined traditions, cultural identity solidified. Akkad emerged as unifying force across Mesopotamia. Faith bridged communities, trade, and governance. Religion became enduring foundation of imperial society. Scribes composed hymns praising Sargon's achievements. Songs celebrated victories and divine favor. Poetry reinforced loyalty across Akkadian cities. Literature became tool of imperial propaganda. Epics recounted heroic deeds of kings. Battles, diplomacy, and governance immortalized clearly. Stories connected rulers with gods above. Narratives shaped collective memory and identity. Hymns honored both Sumerian and Akkadian deities. Rituals intertwined with literary expression. Faith and empire merged through eloquent words. Sacred texts strengthened spiritual and political authority. Poets worked in palaces and temples diligently. Compositions glorified rulers and monumental projects. Artistry communicated power to all social classes. Stories circulated widely among scribes and citizens. Royal inscriptions recorded laws and accomplishments. Cuneiform tablets preserved speeches and decrees. Messages reached governors and commoners systematically. Literacy conveyed ideology through written permanence. Literature reinforced social hierarchy subtly. Kings, priests, and nobles featured prominently. Commoners observed exemplary behavior through storytelling. Texts taught obedience and civic duty consistently. Epics and hymns celebrated military campaigns vividly. Soldiers, generals, and loyal citizens immortalized. Sacred approval justified expansionist ambitions clearly. War and faith intertwined in poetic narrative. Scribes composed educational texts for future generations. Lessons reflected ideals of justice and leadership. Children learned through memorization and recitation. Writing ensured continuity of imperial culture. Poetry praised urban planning and monumental architecture. Temples, palaces, and canals highlighted kings' vision. Works linked material achievements to divine mandate. Cultural pride strengthened civic and religious loyalty. Hymns commemorated festivals and seasonal rituals. Songs marked planting, harvest, and celestial events. Communities engaged with literary expression collectively. Celebrations reinforced unity and shared imperial ideology. Oral tradition complemented written texts consistently. Storytellers traveled between villages and towns. Epic recitation inspired devotion to rulers. Knowledge spread through performance and memory. Literature reflected moral and ethical values clearly. Kingship and justice guided citizens' daily conduct. Texts preserved societal expectations across generations. Culture strengthened through disciplined literary tradition. Royal scribes edited, copied, and distributed texts. Clay tablets preserved knowledge for distant provinces. Centralized control ensured uniformity in messages. Empire maintained cohesion through shared written culture. Poetry and hymns became tools of diplomacy. Tributary states received written praise of Akkad. Words projected power beyond military conquest. Influence extended through intellectual and spiritual channels. Through literature, empire's ideology endured faithfully. Art, faith, and governance became inseparable. Scribes immortalized values, rulers, and victories. Cultural identity thrived under disciplined literary tradition. Kings ruled Akkad with divine authority clearly. Subjects obeyed mandates as sacred duty. Royal decisions guided governance and military campaigns. Power concentrated at the empire's pinnacle. Nobles advised kings and administered regions. They managed lands, wealth, and provincial affairs. Aristocracy supported central authority effectively. Elite families ensured loyalty and continuity. Priests mediated between gods and citizens. Temples served as spiritual and administrative centers. Rituals reinforced societal norms and divine order. Faith legitimized social structure consistently. Artisans created goods for temples and palaces. Potters, weavers, and metal workers displayed mastery. Crafts supported economy and imperial grandeur. Skill elevated culture and strengthened the empire. Farmers cultivated land and provided sustenance. Irrigation maintained fields feeding growing populations. Agricultural labor sustained both city and army. Peasants formed backbone of society's productivity. Kings set laws guiding social behavior. Hierarchy ensured order and minimized rebellion. Authority flowed downward through clear channels. Each class understood its duties and privileges. Nobles held land and collected tribute locally. They mediated conflicts and enforced royal decrees. Influence combined political and economic power. Loyalty strengthened empire's control over provinces. Priests educated scribes and recorded sacred texts. Faith-informed governance, law, and morality. Religious authority reinforced kings' legitimacy. Society depended on guidance from spiritual leaders. Artisans passed skills through generations consistently. Workshops produced tools, weapons, and ceremonial objects. Craftsmanship reflected cultural identity and status. Artisans bridged practical and ceremonial life. Farmers organized labor for crops and irrigation. Seasonal cycles dictated planting and harvesting. Communities coordinated to ensure food security. Agricultural production supported empire's stability and growth. Kings celebrated festivals and royal ceremonies publicly. Nobles participated in state-sponsored religious events. Priests performed sacred rites with ceremonial precision. All classes contributed to cultural and social cohesion. Hierarchy shaped legal rights and responsibilities clearly. Social mobility existed, but remained limited significantly. Loyalty, service, and skill influenced opportunities gradually. Each class played a defined role within empire. Artisans and farmers respected authority of nobles. Communities functioned efficiently under structured social order. Mutual dependence maintained stability across diverse populations. Empire thrived on cooperation among hierarchical classes. Through hierarchy, Akkad maintained centralized control effectively. Order, faith, and labor supported governance sustainably. Kings, nobles, priests, artisans, and farmers together formed enduring foundation of Akkadian society. Young scribes trained in temple schools carefully. Lessons included writing, arithmetic, and administration. Clay tablets formed foundation of their practice. Skills ensured continuity of empire's governance. Students learned cuneiform script systematically. Symbols represented sounds, words, and numbers. Practice involved copying texts repeatedly. Accuracy became essential for official documentation. Scribes recorded laws, taxes, and tributes. Official messages preserved authority across provinces. Training emphasized precision and consistency. Knowledge became backbone of imperial bureaucracy. Education included practical administration techniques, calculating resources, managing labor, and drafting decrees. Students observed experienced scribes closely. Mentorship ensured skill transfer across generations. Temples and palaces served as classrooms. Sacred and civic duties intertwined naturally. Scribes learned both religious and administrative texts. Faith reinforced their role in governance. Memorization strengthened retention of symbols. Repetition ensured mastery of complex language. Errors could lead to administrative confusion. Accuracy preserved central authority throughout empire. Advanced students managed provincial record-keeping independently. They supervised lesser scribes in villages and towns. Reports sent regularly to Akkad. Administration remained informed through reliable communication. Scribes contributed to economic oversight effectively. Recorded trade, production, and taxation precisely. Clay tablets documented wealth, labor, and goods. Empire relied on organized record-keeping consistently. Education emphasized moral responsibility alongside technical skill. Scribes upheld integrity in documentation and reporting. Trust ensured accurate preservation of imperial decisions. Ethics reinforced power and governance legitimacy. Scribes recorded royal decrees and legal codes. Historical events, battles, and treaties preserved. Education prepared them for careers in bureaucracy. Knowledge became instrument of centralized administration. Students practiced rituals to enhance focus and discipline. Temple ceremonies connected learning with spiritual guidance. Training strengthened cultural identity and loyalty. Scribes became pillars of Akkadian society. Administrative education ensured rapid response to issues. Reports allowed kings to make informed decisions. Communication between capital and provinces remained efficient. Empire functioned through disciplined knowledge management. Scribes maintained archives for future generations. Clay tablets preserved history and legal precedent. Education ensured continuity despite political challenges. Knowledge bridged time and space across Akkad through rigorous training. Scribes supported empire. Administrative records maintained order and resource flow. Education became central to governance and culture. Empire thrived on literate, skilled bureaucrats faithfully. Festivals celebrated gods and imperial power simultaneously. Citizens gathered in temples and city squares. Songs, dances, and offerings united communities. Ceremonies reinforced shared faith and cultural identity. Rituals marked planting, harvest, and seasonal cycles. Farmers honored deities for fertile fields. Agricultural life intertwined with spiritual devotion. Communities synchronized labor and worship consistently. Royal ceremonies displayed Sargon's divine mandate clearly. Kings led processions and public prayers. Monuments and palaces became stage for authority. Citizens witnessed unity of faith and governance. Festivals included music, poetry, and storytelling. Hymns glorified gods and celebrated rulers. Performances reflected imperial ideology and cultural pride. Art and faith blended in vibrant celebrations. Priests coordinated rituals across provinces efficiently. Temples served as hubs for ceremonial activity. Sacred traditions reinforced social hierarchy effectively. Faith legitimized loyalty to king and empire. Parades and processions involved nobles and citizens. Elites displayed wealth and status publicly. Participation emphasized cohesion across social classes. Empire projected power through collective celebration. Seasonal festivals integrated Sumerian and Akkadian traditions. Shared ceremonies created cultural continuity among provinces. Communities embraced combined religious practices enthusiastically. Unity strengthened through repeated communal observance. Royal decrees announced special ritual occasions clearly. Citizens prepared offerings and communal feasts. Festivities became expression of civic and spiritual life. Empire thrived through synchronized participation consistently. Military triumphs celebrated with public ceremonies elaborately. Soldiers, generals, and citizens honored together. Victory reinforced king's authority and divine favor. Festivals reminded all of centralized imperial power. Processions featured statues, sacred artifacts, and symbols. Artisans crafted decorations and ceremonial objects. Temples became focal points of community gatherings. Celebration reflected aesthetic, religious, and political unity. Music and dance accompanied seasonal and royal festivals. Cultural expression promoted loyalty and communal harmony. Citizens experienced shared identity through ceremonial participation. Empire fostered cohesion across diverse populations. Temple rituals educated citizens in moral and spiritual lessons. Priests guided both elites and commoners equally. Knowledge and faith transmitted through public ceremonies. Social values reinforced collectively through structured observance. Festivals commemorated historical events and divine intervention. Stories of kings' victories passed through generations. Memory and ideology preserved in ceremonial acts. Empire maintained continuity through repeated celebration. Through festivals, rituals, and ceremonies consistently. Akkad strengthened identity, loyalty, and cultural cohesion. Communities united under shared faith and governance. Empire endured through collective spiritual and civic life. Sargon maintained a permanent standing army. Soldiers trained year-round for warfare and defense. Professional warriors ensured rapid response to threats. Empire relied on disciplined, loyal military force. Specialized units included archers and infantry. Each soldier mastered specific combat techniques. Unit coordination enhanced battlefield effectiveness significantly. Tactics relied on organization and precision. Elite troops guarded king and capital strategically. Palace guards ensured security within Akkad's walls. Defensive forces patrolled borders constantly. Protection reinforced central authority and political stability. Cavalry units provided speed and flexibility. Mounted soldiers conducted reconnaissance and raids. Mobility allowed rapid deployment across provinces. Empire controlled vast territory efficiently through army. Engineers supported military campaigns with siege equipment, constructed ladders, ramps, and fortifications skillfully. Siege tactics demonstrated strategic ingenuity clearly. Army combined technology with disciplined manpower. Training emphasized loyalty and obedience strictly. Soldiers followed commands without hesitation or doubt. Hierarchical structure ensured chain of command. Discipline strengthened cohesion in every battle. Scribes recorded military movements and inventories meticulously. Clay tablets preserved details of troops and supplies. Documentation ensured accountability and effective logistics. Administration supported operational readiness across regions. Archers provided range support in open battle. Skilled marksmen targeted enemy formations precisely. Combined arms enhanced overall battlefield dominance. Coordination between infantry and archers ensured efficiency. Engineers and artificers crafted weapons and armor. Metallurgy advanced through military demands consistently. Quality equipment increased soldier survivability and effectiveness. Technological edge contributed to empire's military success. Specialized units included river and naval troops. Control of waterways facilitated rapid troop movement. Rivers became strategic arteries for campaigns. Army utilized terrain advantageously during operations. Reservists supplemented professional soldiers when necessary. Citizen militias reinforced standing army temporarily. Coordination between professionals and auxiliaries enhanced defense. Empire maintained flexible and scalable military force. Fortifications and garrisons maintained regional stability. Army presence deterred rebellion and invasions. Military reinforced central authority across provinces. Control depended on visible, disciplined forces. Training included physical endurance and tactical drills. Soldiers prepared for siege, open battle, and patrols. Continuous practice ensured readiness under any conditions. Empire thrived through professional, reliable military power. Through a standing army, Akkad projected strength. Professional soldiers secured borders and internal order. Empire expanded while maintaining defensive capability. Military structure became foundation of imperial control. Sargon employed meticulous siege warfare techniques. Walls were battered with ramps and battering rams. Tactics combined engineering skill with brute force. Cities fell under calculated, relentless assaults. River campaigns allowed rapid troop deployment strategically. Boats transported soldiers and supplies efficiently. Waterways became lifelines for military campaigns. Control of rivers ensured logistical superiority consistently. Fortresses were encircled and starved into surrender. Siege prolonged to break enemy morale gradually. Engineers constructed siege towers and protective shelters. Precision and patience were key to successful conquests. Rivers allowed flanking and surprise attacks effectively. Bridges and pontoons facilitated rapid crossing. Troops advanced along waterways for tactical advantage. Empire exploited natural terrain to achieve dominance. Siege engines launched projectiles over city walls. Catapults hurled stones and incendiary materials accurately. Assaults combined ranged bombardment and infantry charges. Defenders struggled against coordinated multi-pronged attacks. Scouts gathered intelligence on enemy fortifications carefully. Plans adapted to terrain, wall strength, and garrison. Knowledge of defenses informed tactical deployment immediately. Preparation increased likelihood of swift victory significantly. Encirclement isolated cities from external support. Cutting off supplies weakened defenders psychologically. Negotiations followed after prolonged pressure strategically. Conquered populations often surrendered to avoid destruction. Rivers supported supply lines for prolonged sieges. Food, weapons, and reinforcements moved efficiently. Communication between besieging forces remained constant. Logistics ensured army entrance and operational effectiveness. Combined arms tactics integrated infantry, archers, and chariots. Siege operations coordinated multiple units for efficiency. Synchronization of forces overcame heavily defended positions. Tactical planning minimized casualties and maximized success. Naval units patrolled rivers to prevent escape. Enemy reinforcements were intercepted consistently. Waterborne forces reinforced sieges or supported retreats. Empire achieved control over critical waterways strategically. Psychological pressure supplemented physical assault systematically. Propaganda, intimidation, and visible power reinforced campaigns. Cities surrendered sooner under fear of destruction. Empire expanded rapidly through combined military strategy. Siege warfare fostered technological innovation continuously. Engineers designed new implements and construction methods. Adaptation and experimentation enhanced effectiveness over time. Empire remained ahead of rivals tactically and technologically. Campaigns along rivers demonstrated strategic flexibility consistently. Adaptation to terrain increased operational success rates. Combination of siege and river tactics dominated adversaries. Akkad leveraged mobility and engineering advantage effectively through coordinated sieges and river campaigns meticulously. Sargon conquered northern and southern city-states efficiently. Empire expanded boundaries with calculated precision repeatedly. Military strategy ensured dominance across Mesopotamia reliably. Chariots carried soldiers swiftly into battle. Wheeled vehicles enabled rapid maneuvering effectively. Speed and mobility shocked enemy formations immediately. Empire exploited terrain to maximize tactical advantage. Archers fired arrows from moving chariots efficiently. Precision struck enemies before they could react. Combination of mobility and firepower ensured dominance. Chariots became symbols of Akkadian military innovation. Spearmen advanced alongside chariots in coordinated attacks. Units synchronized movements for a maximum battlefield effect. Training emphasized timing, formation, and discipline carefully. Tactics integrated multiple weapon types seamlessly. Bows and crossbows provided range superiority consistently. Soldiers struck from distance with accuracy and speed. Projectile weapons disrupted enemy defenses before engagement. Technology enhanced both offense and defensive capability. Chariots carried commanders to direct battlefield operations. Leaders maintained control and issued orders rapidly. Mobility allowed oversight of multiple combat zones simultaneously. Command structure strengthened through technological advantage. Siege engines launched projectiles over defensive walls. Catapults and slings increased reach and lethality. Advanced weapons breached fortifications effectively. Engineering and military skill combined to conquer. Metalworking produced stronger weapons and armor. Swords, spears, and shields improved soldier survivability. Technological refinement gave Akkad tactical edge consistently. Innovation reinforced Empire's military superiority reliably. Chariots intimidated enemy forces psychologically. Movement, speed, and noise demoralized defenders instantly. Fear amplified impact of coordinated attacks. Empire leveraged technology to assert dominance quickly. Training ensured soldiers mastered advanced weaponry precisely. Repeated drills prepared troops for complex maneuvers. Skill amplified effectiveness of chariots and armaments. Professionals executed tactics with remarkable efficiency. Combined arms integrated infantry, chariots, and archers. Coordination created synergy for overwhelming force. Advanced weapons multiplied combat effectiveness significantly. Empire maintained battlefield superiority over rivals continuously. Innovation extended to fortification assault strategically. Engineers designed weapons to overcome specific defenses. Siege and battlefield technology evolved together systematically. Empire adapted tools to meet diverse challenges. Chariots enhanced communication during battle efficiently. Commanders relayed orders quickly across vast formations. Rapid movement allowed flexible response to enemy tactics. Coordination maximized strategic and tactical effectiveness through chariots and advanced weaponry meticulously. Akkad achieved dominance over neighboring regions rapidly. Military technology reinforced central authority consistently. Empire secured power through innovation and skill. Sargon used fear to ensure obedience quickly. Stories of punishment spread through conquered regions. Citizens learned consequences of rebellion clearly. Empire reinforced authority without constant physical force. Monuments displayed victories and subjugated enemies. Walls and statues told tales of power. Visual reminders intimidated potential resistors effectively. Psychological impact strengthened imperial dominance continuously. Propaganda declared king chosen by the gods. Divine approval legitimized rule and conquest. Religion and fear intertwined to maintain control. Citizens accepted authority as sacred and inevitable. Messengers spread news of military successes widely. Rapid communication amplified perception of invincibility. Conquered cities understood empire's reach thoroughly. Psychological pressure minimized organized resistance significantly. Public executions and displays deterred potential rebels. Defeated leaders were paraded before citizens carefully. Fear maintained order without constant warfare. Empire relied on reputation to enforce obedience. Scribes documented triumphs and brutal campaigns. Clay tablets circulated accounts across provinces systematically. Written records reinforced awe and caution consistently. Knowledge of empire's power spread quickly. Deception and misinformation confused enemy strategists effectively. False reports misled rebels and rival armies. Intelligence operations supported military and psychological strategy. Control extended beyond battlefield through cunning manipulation. Religious ceremonies reinforced loyalty psychologically. King associated with gods during rituals publicly. Faith aligned with fear to secure obedience. Spiritual authority strengthened political dominance efficiently. Negotiations often accompanied subtle intimidation subtly. Diplomacy combined respect and implicit threat. Conquered populations complied to avoid harsh consequences. Empire expanded influence with minimal resistance successfully. Sieges and threats alone induced surrender frequently. Cities capitulated before physical assault occurred. Psychological tactics conserved military resources efficiently. Empire relied on perception as a weapon. Royal inscriptions glorified victories and punished traitors. Stories of Sargon's ruthlessness circulated widely. Fear and reverence became inseparable tools. Control maintained efficiently across diverse populations. Citizens internalized obedience through cultural indoctrination subtly. Children learned tales of conquest and authority. Legends emphasized loyalty, courage, and fear. Generations remembered empire's power and supremacy. Spies monitored sentiment within conquered territories continuously. Information guided psychological campaigns effectively. Empire adapted strategy based on local morale. Sargon maintained control through constant vigilance. Through psychological warfare, empire minimized rebellion consistently. Fear, propaganda, and divine mandate reinforced rule. Conquered populations obeyed without constant enforcement. Akkad maintained dominance across vast, diverse territories. Sargon led campaigns beyond Mesopotamian heartland. Armies marched into Levant, Anatolia, and Iran. Empire sought resources, trade routes, and influence. Expansion extended Akkad's reach across vast lands. Levant cities faced swift, organized military strikes. Sieges subdued fortified towns with calculated tactics. Local rulers were absorbed into imperial structure. Tribute and loyalty enforced without prolonged resistance. Anatolian highlands presented difficult terrain strategically. Engineers and scouts mapped passes carefully. Chariots and infantry adapted to mountainous campaigns. Success relied on planning, skill, and mobility. Iranian regions offered fertile lands and trade access. Conquered territories strengthened empire economically significantly. Resource control fueled military and public projects. Expansion reinforced Akkad's power and stability consistently. Allied and vassal states integrated gradually. Sargon installed governors and local administrators. Central authority extended through diplomacy and military might. Empire maintained cohesion across culturally diverse populations. Rivers and roads facilitated movement of troops. Logistics ensured supply lines, supported distant campaigns. Rapid deployment prevented enemy coordination effectively. Communication allowed coordination across multiple fronts efficiently. Battles combined infantry, archers, and chariots strategically. Sieges and open field engagements achieved decisive victories. Advanced weaponry and tactics overwhelmed regional forces. Empire secured control through military innovation consistently. Local elites sometimes retained authority under oversight. Governors collected tribute and enforced imperial law. Population integrated into Akkadian administrative and cultural systems. Empire expanded governance alongside conquest successfully. Trade networks flourished after military campaigns concluded. Goods, crafts, and agricultural produce moved freely. Economic growth supported urban development and prosperity. Expansion benefited both capital and provinces mutually. Religious and cultural assimilation accompanied conquest effectively. Temples and rituals reinforced Akkadian identity. Faith legitimized imperial authority across new territories. Cultural diplomacy minimized resistance and promoted cohesion. Messengers maintained communication with newly conquered regions. Reports ensured central administration monitored expansion efficiently. Scribes documented campaigns, victories, and territorial gains. Information preserved empire's achievements for future generations. Military forts and outposts secured borders systematically. Strategic locations controlled trade routes and population centers. Garrisons projected authority and maintained stability consistently. Empire relied on permanent presence to deter rebellion. Expansion campaigns demonstrated Sargon's strategic brilliance clearly. Integration of distant regions showcased organizational skill. Empire stretched from Levant to Iranian Plateau. Akkad achieved unprecedented power and influence regionally through military conquest and administration meticulously. Akkadian Empire unified diverse lands under central authority. Boundaries extended far beyond traditional Mesopotamia reliably. Legacy endured as first major Mesopotamian empire. Fertile lands yielded abundant crops consistently. Irrigation canals ensured reliable water supply. Farmers produced surplus to feed growing populations. Urban centers depended on steady agricultural output, grain, barley, and wheat stored in granaries. Surplus supported citizens, soldiers, and officials. Storage prevented famine during lean harvests. Management maintained stability across Akkadian territories. Rivers provided transport for agricultural goods efficiently. Boats carried grain from countryside to cities. Markets flourished with consistent supply of food. Trade within empire thrived on agricultural production. Military garrisons relied on steady provisions regularly. Soldiers stationed at distant forts received rations. Surplus enabled prolonged campaigns and troop mobility. Army depended on empire's productive countryside. Labor organized around planting, tending, and harvest. Communities coordinated to maximize agricultural efficiency. Village cooperation ensured surplus production reliably. Collective effort strengthened food security for empire. Irrigation projects expanded cultivable land significantly. Canals, dams, and reservoirs increased productivity greatly. Engineering enabled consistent yields even during dry periods. Agriculture became backbone of Akkad's economic power. Surplus allowed artisans and officials to specialize. Normal farmers freed for crafts, administration, and trade. Division of labor increased cultural and technological growth. Society prospered through organized agricultural economy. Taxation and tribute collected from farmers carefully. Contributions funded infrastructure, temples, and royal projects. Agriculture supported broader social and political stability. Empire thrived on disciplined resource management. Food distribution maintained urban population health effectively. Cities relied on grain for sustenance and commerce. Population density supported workforce for administrative and craft tasks. Agriculture underpinned both economy and military strength. Seasonal cycles dictated planting and harvesting schedules. Farmers planned to maximize surplus and minimize waste. Timing ensured food supply matched urban and army demands. Coordination maintained order and efficiency across provinces. Storage facilities protected against spoilage and theft. Granaries safeguarded empire's most vital resources systematically. Scribes recorded yields and allocations meticulously. Administration monitored agricultural production closely. Surplus enabled diplomatic gifts and trade with neighbors. Food became commodities supporting influence and alliances. Generosity reinforced political relationships across Mesopotamia. Agriculture underpinned empire's regional power. Technological innovations improved yield over generations. Plows, irrigation methods, and crop rotation optimized production. Knowledge passed down ensured continuity and reliability. Agricultural expertise became vital asset for Akkad. Through surplus agriculture, empire sustained urban life. Farmers, citizens, and soldiers all benefited directly. Economic stability rooted in fertile land and planning. Akkad prospered through organization, labor, and irrigation. Merchants traveled long distances with goods carefully. Caravans linked cities across rivers and deserts. Trade connected Mesopotamia with Indus Valley efficiently. Routes expanded cultural, economic, and political influence steadily. Anatolia supplied metals, timber, and raw stone. Merchants transported resources across mountains strategically. Urban centers flourished with imported materials consistently. Empire relied on external goods for construction projects. Indus Valley provided exotic goods and luxury items. Seals, beads, and textiles traveled westward regularly. Mesopotamian markets offered grain, tools, and crafts. Exchange strengthened wealth and interregional connections significantly. Rivers served as natural highways for trade. Boats carried heavy loads efficiently downstream. Canals facilitated transport between cities locally. Waterways linked producers and consumers effectively. Caravan routes traversed deserts and mountain passes. Guides ensured safety and direction for merchants. Trade required organization, protection, and planning. Empire monitored commerce to maintain stability. Market towns emerged along major trade routes. Merchants and artisans prospered from consistent demand. Urban populations depended on goods from distant lands. Economic activity spread wealth across regions. Trade facilitated diplomatic relations with distant kingdoms. Exchange included gifts, tribute, and negotiated contracts. Political alliances reinforced through economic interdependence. Empire strengthened influence without direct conquest. Scribes recorded transactions and inventories meticulously. Accounting ensured fair trade and imperial oversight. Clay tablets preserved details of long-distance commerce. Administration relied on accurate documentation consistently. Caravan protection relied on soldiers and local authorities. Merchants were escorted through potentially dangerous territories. Security ensured successful completion of trade expeditions. Empire safeguarded economic lifelines proactively. Cultural exchange accompanied trade expeditions consistently. Languages, techniques, and ideas traveled along routes. Knowledge spread alongside material goods efficiently. Civilizations benefited from interaction and shared expertise. Luxury goods reinforced social hierarchy and prestige. Elites displayed imported items in palaces and temples. Status symbolized wealth and access to distant lands. Trade supported both economy and cultural influence. Seasonal planning determined caravan departure and arrival. Merchants adapted routes based on climate and safety. Coordination ensured predictable flow of goods reliably. Trade networks required skill, strategy, and discipline. Through expansive trade, Akkad linked diverse regions. Economy, culture, and diplomacy thrived together systematically. Mesopotamia became central hub for commerce and exchange. Empire projected power through wealth and connectivity. Akkadians sourced metals from distant Anatolia efficiently. Copper, tin, and precious ores mined systematically. Artisans transformed raw materials into tools and weapons. Resource extraction fueled economy and military power. Timber harvested from northern forests supplied construction. Beams, planks, and fuel transported via rivers. Wood supported palaces, temples, and siege engines. Empire relied on forests for infrastructure consistently. Stone quarried for temples and monumental architecture. Carved blocks formed ziggurats and city walls. Masonry showcased engineering skill and aesthetic vision. Construction reinforced imperial authority and cultural identity. Mining required skilled labor and organization meticulously. Workshops processed metals into usable forms. Artisans crafted weapons, tools, and ceremonial items. Metalworking became cornerstone of technological advancement. Rivers enabled transport of heavy resources efficiently. Boats carried stone, timber, and ores downstream. Waterways connected mines to urban centers reliably. Logistics ensured continuous supply for empire's needs. Quarries operated under strict administrative oversight carefully. Scribes recorded quantities extracted and delivered. Tributes and taxes supplemented resource production. Management preserved stability across mining regions. Timber was essential for chariot construction strategically. Chariots enhanced military mobility and battlefield effectiveness. Wood also powered doors, gates, and fortifications. Empire depended on forests to maintain technological edge. Metals strengthened military superiority and economic growth. Bronze weapons and tools increased efficiency consistently. Artisans innovated to maximize utility of raw materials. Metal supply became strategic asset for Akkad. Stone and timber supported religious structures significantly. Temples and monuments symbolized divine and political power. Sacred architecture reflected cultural unity and imperial grandeur. Construction projects reinforced loyalty and civic pride. Extraction operations employed both local and imperial labor. Workers were organized in teams for efficiency. Tasks included cutting, transporting, and crafting materials. Labor ensured timely completion of projects across regions. Scribes monitored production, quality, and distribution closely. Records allowed central administration to track resources. Efficiency minimized waste and ensured sufficient supply. Empire maintained control through structured oversight. Resource acquisition enabled trade with neighboring regions. Metals and timber exchanged for luxury goods. Economic networks expanded through strategic exploitation systematically. Empire grew wealth and influence through resource management. Engineering techniques evolved to improve extraction efficiency. Quarrying, smelting, and woodworking became advanced systematically. Knowledge passed down to future generations consistently. Technical expertise reinforced Akkad's economic and military strength. Through meticulous resource extraction, empire sustained growth. Materials supported military, infrastructure, and ceremonial projects. Akkad thrived on natural wealth and human skill. Empire's prosperity relied on metals, timber, and stone. Conquered regions delivered tribute regularly to Akkad. Taxes included grain, metals, and crafted goods. Tribute funded military campaigns and public projects. Economy relied on contributions from controlled territories. Local rulers collected tribute under imperial supervision. Governors ensured compliance and accurate reporting consistently. Tribute reinforced central authority and political stability. System integrated diverse lands into unified economic framework. Scribes recorded amounts, dates, and delivery routes. Clay tablets preserved details for administrative oversight. Accountability ensured resources reached central stores efficiently. Documentation maintained control over far-reaching provinces. Tribute supported standing army is stationed across empire. Food, weapons, and materials sustained military readiness. Reliable contributions enabled extended campaigns and defense. Empire leveraged wealth from conquered populations effectively. Gifts and luxury goods supplemented regular tribute. Elites sent exotic items to Akkad as offerings. Tribute reflected loyalty, submission, and political relationship. Exchange reinforced hierarchy between center and periphery. Tribute system encouraged agricultural and craft production locally. Farmers, artisans, and traders increased output consistently. Surplus flowed into imperial granaries and workshops. Economy strengthened through organized extraction of resources. Regular collection of tributes maintained administrative infrastructure. Officials, scribes, and messengers ensured smooth operation. Communication between capital and provinces coordinated efficiently. Empire projected control through economic integration successfully. Tributes sometimes included labor for public works projects. Workers built canals, temples, and fortifications systematically. Labor supplemented local production and reinforced imperial power. Population contributed directly to empire's prosperity and stability. Conquered cities sometimes retained autonomy under tribute agreements. Local rulers collected payments on behalf of Akkad. Flexibility minimized rebellion while maximizing economic benefit. System balanced coercion with practical governance efficiently. Seasonal and annual tribute schedules maintained predictability. Agricultural, craft, and mineral resources delivered consistently. Central stores allocated supplies to cities and army. Planning ensured empire functioned smoothly across vast lands. Tribute strengthened trade networks indirectly through resource redistribution. Goods transported along rivers and roads connected provinces. Markets flourished from contributions and surplus flows. Integration fostered economic interdependence across regions. Scribes monitored compliance and punished defaulters carefully. Records ensured fair assessment and consistent collection. Central administration maintained authority over distant territories. System prevented collapse and maintained economic stability. Tribute reinforced social hierarchy across provinces systematically. Elite families, officials, and priests supervised collection. Ordinary citizens participated indirectly through production and labor. Empire maintained control over both resources and people. Through tribute, empire integrated distant lands economically. Wealth flowed to Akkad to sustain military and culture. Conquered populations contributed to empire's stability and power. Economic cohesion forced political and military dominance. Trade routes carried more than goods consistently. Ideas, techniques, and beliefs traveled alongside merchants. Knowledge spread across Mesopotamia and neighboring lands. Cultural exchange enriched cities and communities rapidly. Mesopotamian artisans adopted styles from Indus Valley. Pottery, weaving, and metalwork showed foreign influence. Craftsmanship evolved through exposure to diverse techniques. Artistic innovation strengthened identity and economic value. Writing and record-keeping methods spread via commerce. Cuneiform inspired adaptation in distant territories. Scribes exchanged knowledge of administration and trade. Literacy and documentation connected empire with neighbors. Architectural designs incorporated imported concepts efficiently. Temple layouts and urban planning reflected foreign ideas. Building techniques improved through exposure to different cultures. Innovation accelerated through intercultural contact and observation. Religious symbols and practices traveled through merchants. Local rituals merged with Akkadian and foreign traditions. Faith became shared and adaptable across regions. Cultural cohesion strengthened by mutual religious influences. Technological knowledge accompanied material goods consistently. Metallurgy, irrigation, and transportation improved with exchange. Innovation spread rapidly through long-distance trade networks. Empire benefited from both practical and intellectual growth. Languages and scripts mixed in border towns naturally. Bilingual scribes facilitated communication and record-keeping effectively. Multilingualism promoted diplomacy and interregional understanding. Trade became conduit for linguistic and cultural transmission. Mathematics and astronomy knowledge flowed through networks. Calendars, weights, and measures standardized across regions. Scientific ideas spread along commercial arteries steadily. Empire advanced through shared technological expertise efficiently. Cuisine and agricultural techniques adapted to local conditions. New crops, cooking methods, and farming practices circulated. Foodways reflected intercultural contact and innovation. Cultural enrichment accompanied material prosperity consistently. Military knowledge also traveled with merchants and emissaries. Siege techniques, chariot designs, and armor shared. Neighboring states learned from Akkadian advancements effectively. Exchange reinforced both defense and tactical capabilities. Fashion and personal adornment reflected external influences. Jewelry, textiles, and attire displayed intercultural styles. Status symbols incorporated imported materials creatively. Trade promoted visible markers of identity and prestige. Ideas about governance and law spread gradually. Administrative practices adapted from Akkad-influenced neighboring regions. Legal codes, taxation, and bureaucracy integrated into other states. Cultural influence extended without direct conquest. Music, dance, and performance art circulated widely. Instruments and rhythms introduced new artistic forms. Cultural expression became a shared experience across regions. Communities bonded through performance and aesthetic appreciation. Scientific instruments, weights, and measuring tools exchanged. Technical knowledge enabled infrastructure and commercial improvements. Innovation flowed with goods and ideas consistently. Trade networks became engines of cultural and technological growth. Through trade, Akkad became a hub of learning. Ideas, crafts, and techniques enriched empire continuously. Cultural and technological exchange ensured long-term prosperity. Empire's influence extended far beyond its political borders. Kings commissioned grand temples for their gods. Ziggurats dominated city skylines visibly. Sacred structures showcased devotion and imperial power. Architecture symbolized divine authority and human ambition. Palaces housed rulers and administrative offices meticulously. Courtyards, halls, and chambers reflected status clearly. Walls protected both leaders and citizens consistently. Fortifications reinforced security and social hierarchy effectively. Builders used mud brick, timber, and stone strategically. Materials transported from distant quarries and forests carefully. Construction required skilled artisans and organized labor. Projects employed thousands across empire efficiently. City walls enclosed urban centers for protection. Gates controlled access and facilitated trade routes. Defensive architecture deterred invaders and rebellions reliably. Walls symbolized strength and authority visually. Temples became focal points for religious ceremonies regularly. Sacred spaces hosted offerings, rituals, and festivals. Priests managed temples as both spiritual and civic hubs. Community life revolved around these monumental structures consistently. Palaces served as centers of political power actively. Royal courts conducted governance and diplomatic affairs daily. Administrative functions intertwined with ceremonial presence carefully. Buildings reflected prestige, wealth, and centralized control. Urban planning incorporated temples, palaces, and walls. Layout emphasized hierarchy, accessibility, and civic order. Streets connected important structures for functionality efficiently. Design facilitated trade, defense, and governance effectively. Monuments reinforced collective identity and imperial ideology symbolically. Architecture communicated strength, piety, and cultural sophistication clearly. Civic pride manifested through monumental construction systematically. Structures reflected empire's power and vision visibly. Artisans carved decorative elements into buildings intricately. Reliefs depicted gods, kings, and mythological scenes. Symbolism integrated religious and political messages strategically. Art reinforced authority and inspired devotion consistently. Engineering innovations supported construction of tall ziggurats. Ramps, scaffolds, and counterweights enabled precise placement. Technical skill reflected ingenuity and organization practically. Empire advanced architectural knowledge through complex projects efficiently. Urban centers featured fortified walls with towers regularly. Observation points and gates improved security and control. Military planning integrated seamlessly into city architecture. Structures protected inhabitants and projected power simultaneously. Building projects stimulated economy and employment extensively. Farmers, laborers, and craftsmen contributed to monumental works. Surplus resources supported both workforce and construction activities. Empire leveraged economic and human capital effectively. Temples and palaces embodied Akkadian aesthetic and function. Form and decoration blended beauty, symbolism, and utility. Architecture communicated cultural values and imperial priorities consistently. Monuments stood as testament to human and divine ambition. Through construction of temples, palaces, and walls, Akkad projected authority, spirituality, and civic pride. Urban centers reflected empire's organization and innovation. Architecture remained enduring symbol of Akkadian legacy. Cylinder seals marked property and official documents. Engraved designs conveyed authority and identity efficiently. Artisans carved detailed motifs with precision carefully. Seals reflected both utility and artistic mastery consistently. Statues immortalized kings, deities, and nobles prominently. Stone and bronze captured facial features accurately. Monuments conveyed power, divinity, and societal values. Public display reinforced reverence and loyalty effectively. Reliefs adorned palaces, temples, and walls elaborately. Scenes depicted battles, rituals, and mythological narratives. Imagery communicated cultural stories without written text. Art served as visual record of imperial ideology. Intricate craftsmanship reflected skill of Akkadian artisans. Detail captured clothing, jewelry, and weaponry realistically. Proportions and poses conveyed hierarchy and status. Artistic precision reinforced cultural and political messages. Seals functioned as personal and administrative symbols. Individuals, merchants, and officials used them daily. Small objects held significant bureaucratic and symbolic value. Utility intertwined with artistic expression consistently. Statues served religious, political, and commemorative purposes. Gods and kings projected authority through sculpture. Devotion and obedience expressed through visual presence. Public art reinforced spiritual and societal hierarchy. Reliefs illustrated victories, hunts, and ceremonial events. Narratives reinforced memory of rulers' achievements systematically. Walls became storytelling surfaces for empire's ideology. Art communicated historical and cultural legacy visually. Materials included stone, clay, bronze, and precious metals. Durability preserved artifacts across centuries consistently. Choice of medium reflected importance and intended audience. Material conveyed wealth, power, and artistic sophistication. Artistic conventions emphasized proportion, posture, and symbolism. Kings appeared larger than attendants symbolically. Deities depicted with unique attributes and iconography. Visual hierarchy communicated power clearly to observers. Artisans innovated techniques in carving and casting. Fine details displayed skill and aesthetic sophistication. Shading, depth, and perspective enhanced realism effectively. Creativity combined with tradition to produce enduring works. Cylinder seals also conveyed religious and mythological scenes. Narratives reinforced belief systems across cities and temples. Objects linked daily life with divine authority. Art integrated practical and spiritual functions seamlessly. Statues often decorated temple interiors and courtyards. Sacred and ceremonial spaces amplified visual impact. Objects mediated between humans and gods consistently. Art reinforced both ritual and political order. Reliefs depicted complex scenes with multiple figures. Storytelling included kings, soldiers, and divine beings. Dynamic compositions conveyed movement, action, and emotion. Public art celebrated cultural identity and imperial might through cylinder seals, statues, and reliefs. Akkad expressed power, faith, and cultural refinement. Artistic achievements reinforced identity, communication, and legacy. Visual culture preserved memory of empire for posterity. Akkadian language unified diverse city-states efficiently. Scribes used it for administration and correspondence. Writing facilitated governance across vast empire consistently. Diplomacy relied on standardized communication among rulers. Letters and treaties recorded agreements meticulously. Clay tablets preserved terms for posterity carefully. Kings communicated with allies, rivals, and vassals. Akkadian became tool of negotiation and power. Diplomatic envoys carried messages across Mesopotamia reliably. Ambassadors ensured clarity and fidelity of language. Language bridged cultural and geographic divides consistently. Empire projected influence through written and spoken word. Akkadian script evolved from Sumerian cuneiform gradually. Adaptation allowed new phonetic and grammatical structures. Scribes mastered writing for legal, commercial, and diplomatic tasks. Script became versatile from multiple functions effectively. Treaties formalized borders, trade agreements, and alliances. Written language legitimized political arrangements and obligations. Empires maintained order through documentation and oversight consistently. Language reinforced hierarchical and diplomatic structures efficiently. Official correspondence circulated between capitals and provinces. Kings issued commands and received reports regularly. Scribes translated, copied, and archived critical documents. Administration depended on accuracy and literacy of scribes. Akkadian facilitated cross-cultural interactions with neighbors. Trade, diplomacy, and marriage alliances relied on language. Shared tongue enabled negotiation and conflict resolution. Communication strengthened empire's external relations strategically. Education trained scribes to maintain records professionally. Knowledge of Akkadian ensured career in administration reliably. Learning preserved cultural continuity and institutional memory. Empire relied on literate bureaucrats for stability. Legal codes were recorded in Akkadian officially. Contracts, punishments, and decrees reached all citizens clearly. Standard language ensured uniform application of law systematically. Administration achieved cohesion across multiple city-states effectively. Religious texts and hymns also adopted Akkadian. Rituals standardized across diverse populations through language. Faith and governance became intertwined linguistically. Empire reinforced identity and unity through writing. International correspondence spread Akkadian influence abroad significantly. Neighboring states adopted language for diplomacy and trade. Cultural prestige accompanied political and economic power. Language became enduring instrument of imperial authority. Through Akkadian, empire communicated efficiently and consistently. Letters, treaties, and reports preserved order and trust. Standardized language facilitated governance, trade, and diplomacy. Empire projected power across diverse and distant territories. Akkadians engineered canals to control river floods. Irrigation supported fields with water year-round. Agricultural productivity increased through careful management. Surplus ensured stability for cities and army. Dams and levees regulated seasonal river flow. Water reached distant farmlands efficiently. Engineering projects required labor, planning, and skill. Empire maintained infrastructure to sustain population growth. Urban centers designed with streets and grids. Homes, temples, and markets arranged logically. Accessibility balanced with defense and administrative needs. Planning facilitated trade, movement, and civic life. Canals connected cities and rural settlements systematically. Boats transported goods and resources easily. Irrigation linked fields to central storage facilities. Infrastructure supported both economy and military logistics. Silt and soil managed through controlled flooding strategically. Fertile land maximized crop yields consistently. Farmers relied on planned water distribution systems. Agriculture flourished under technologically advanced methods. Reservoirs stored water for dry seasons carefully. Emergency supply ensured crops survived droughts reliably. Centralized planning integrated hydrology with urban needs. Engineering reduced risk of famine across the empire. Street layouts accommodated chariots, pedestrians, and carts. Public spaces organized for markets, ceremonies, and gatherings. Urban design emphasized efficiency, order, and aesthetics. Cities reflected both functionality and imperial vision. Bridges connected riverbanks and trade routes efficiently. Infrastructure facilitated movement of goods and people. Engineering knowledge spread through multiple regions consistently. Technology enabled empire to govern distant provinces effectively. City walls incorporated strategic access points and defense. Towers, gates, and ramparts enhanced security systematically. Military planning integrated seamlessly with urban development. Urban centers were fortified and organized strategically. Drainage systems removed waste and maintained hygiene. Sewage management preserved health in densely populated areas. Public wells provided reliable water sources regularly. Planning improved quality of life and urban longevity. Construction projects trained skilled workers and artisans. Knowledge of engineering and planning passed down generations. Technical expertise ensured consistent quality and sustainability. Empire preserved infrastructure through skilled oversight effectively. Irrigation allowed multiple cropping cycles each year. Farmers harvested more food, supporting larger populations. Technological advances strengthened economy and military simultaneously. Empire leveraged water management to expand influence. Urban planning included temples, palaces, and administrative centers. Buildings reflected hierarchy, functionality, and religious symbolism. Centralized design reinforced authority and cultural identity. Infrastructure communicated both power and organization clearly through irrigation and urban planning meticulously. Akkad sustained agriculture, trade, and population efficiently. Technological innovation underpinned prosperity and stability. Empire thrived due to advanced engineering and foresight. Scribes recorded administrative, religious, and literary texts. Clay tablets preserved laws, rituals, and stories. Libraries became centers of learning and culture. Knowledge survived generations through durable writing materials. Temples and palaces housed extensive collections carefully. Texts documented economy, governance, and divine will. Central archives organized information systematically. Empire relied on records for administration effectively. Cuneiform script encoded language into clay permanently. Stylus impressions captured words for posterity. Scribes trained meticulously in writing techniques. Education ensured knowledge transmission across regions. Literature included myths, epics, and hymns consistently. Stories celebrated kings, gods, and historical events. Textual preservation reinforced cultural identity and memory. Written works guided morality, governance, and faith. Administrative tablets recorded taxes, tribute, and supplies. Economic data ensured efficient planning and distribution. Records facilitated trade, labor, and military organization. Documentation maintained stability and accountability across empire. Libraries supported education of scribes and priests. Training preserved technical, religious, and literary expertise. Knowledge of writing enabled governance and diplomacy effectively. Empire depended on literate bureaucracy for cohesion. Scientific and mathematical knowledge recorded systematically. Calendars, measurements, and observations documented accurately. Information supported architecture, agriculture, and commerce reliably. Technological progress preserved through written instruction consistently. Historical events chronicled victories, conquests, and rulers. Tables recorded lineage and political achievements carefully. Memory of empire remained accessible to future generations. Records ensured continuity of tradition and authority. Legal codes were inscribed on clay tablets permanently. Laws maintained social order and justice throughout Akkad. Cuneiform preserved contracts, decrees, and official correspondence. Standardized writing enforced authority and governance effectively. Religious texts documented rituals, prayers, and ceremonies. Guidelines ensured proper worship and priestly duties. Spiritual knowledge passed from generation to generation. Faith and law intertwined in written form consistently. Libraries facilitated knowledge sharing among cities and regions. Copies of texts circulated to maintain administrative uniformity. Scribes copied, archived, and distributed information efficiently. Communication and record-keeping strengthened imperial cohesion. Literary and scientific works inspired cultural innovation continuously. Epics, hymns, and calculations informed art, architecture, and strategy. Intellectual tradition flourished alongside economic and military power. Preservation ensured legacy beyond Akkad's physical borders. Clay tablets survived fires, floods, and decay. Durable medium preserved insights for millennia faithfully. Archaeological discoveries revealed civilization's accomplishments and daily life. Knowledge provided window into Akkadian culture and governance through libraries and cuneiform documentation systematically. Empire safeguarded law, culture, and technological expertise. Records ensured administrative efficiency and cultural continuity. Akkad's legacy endured through written memory permanently. Sargon's heirs struggled to maintain firm control. Central authority weakened across distant provinces gradually. Governors and local leaders gained increasing autonomy. Empire faced challenges managing diverse and far territories. Political cohesion suffered after Sargon's death naturally. Rival factions emerged among royal family members. Disputes over succession destabilized governance repeatedly. Internal strife eroded public confidence in leadership. Military campaigns became less coordinated and effective. Armies faced difficulty enforcing distant imperial policies. Control over conquered regions weakened gradually over time. Provincial leaders defied central command strategically. Economic management grew inconsistent across empire systematically. Tax collection and tribute became unreliable occasionally. Surplus resources were misallocated or delayed frequently. Administration suffered from weak oversight and internal corruption. Loyalty of provincial governors shifted with circumstances. Some sought independence or aligned with rival claimants. Central bureaucracy struggled to enforce imperial decrees consistently. Fragmentation began to threaten unity of Akkad. Religious authority supported kings, but could not intervene. Priests maintained rituals, while political authority faltered. Spiritual legitimacy partially reinforced cohesion temporarily. Faith alone could not stop political decline. Civil administration became inefficient and disorganized gradually. Scribes faced challenges, maintaining accurate records empire-wide. Legal codes and regulations were inconsistently applied. Governance relied increasingly on local initiative rather than command. Communication across regions slowed due to distance and unrest. Messages took longer, reducing central influence and reaction. Decisions arrived late, weakening imperial coordination consistently. Provinces operated with growing independence from Akkad. Population unrest emerged due to perceived neglect by rulers. Urban centers and villages experienced insecurity and instability. Discontent spread among citizens facing taxation and shortages. Civil dissatisfaction undermined authority of Sargon's successors. Neighboring kingdoms observed weakness and planned interventions. External pressures exploited internal divisions strategically. Akkad's diplomatic influence declined alongside central power. Empire's dominance faced increasing threats from all sides. Leadership struggled to maintain control of military forces. Command structures eroded, causing lack of discipline effectively. Soldiers aligned with local governors rather than central king. Military cohesion collapsed under divided authority. Infrastructure projects slowed or were abandoned entirely. Irrigation, canals, and public works suffered neglect. Agricultural and urban efficiency declined gradually over time. Economic productivity suffered from weakened centralized oversight. Royal decrees were frequently ignored or contested regularly. Provincial rulers acted independently with minimal accountability. Empire relied increasingly on personal loyalty other than law. Weak authority encouraged further decentralization and fragmentation. Sargon's successors could not replicate founders' strategic genius. Political fragmentation accelerated decline of Akkad systematically. Centralized administration faltered under competing ambitions consistently. Empire's unity depended on individual rulers' authority. Through weakened central power, empire became vulnerable steadily. Control over distant lands diminished year by year. Internal division paved way for rebellions and invasions. Akkad's decline had begun despite prior immense strength. Provinces rose in defiance against central authority. Local rulers challenged royal decrees frequently. Discontented governors mobilized armies and militias strategically. Empire struggled to suppress widespread uprisings consistently. Farmers and artisans resisted excessive taxation regularly. Economic strain fueled unrest across rural regions. Food shortages and mismanagement provoked public anger. Civil disturbances undermined imperial control systematically. Urban centers experienced riots and political agitation. City elites contested local officials' authority. Social tension spread rapidly among urban population. Rebellion weakened central government's capacity to govern. Regional leaders exploited chaos to expand influence. Territorial governors claimed autonomy and resources locally. Provinces defied orders from the capital effectively. Fragmentation accelerated as loyalty to Akkad declined. Religious institutions sometimes mediated but could not control. Priests attempted negotiation, while unrest continued. Faith alone could not prevent violence and rebellion. Divine legitimacy partially mitigated, but did not resolve conflict. Rebel leaders seized strategic locations and fortresses. Key trade routes and granaries came under control. Military campaigns to regain these areas met resistance. Empire lost access to vital resources temporarily. Communication delays hindered central response to revolts. Messages traveled slowly, giving rebels time advantage. Coordination of loyalist forces became increasingly difficult. Provincial uprisings spread before reinforcements could arrive. Some regions declared independence entirely from Akkad. Formerly loyal territories established self-rule autonomously. Fragmentation spread geographically across central and peripheral lands. Empire's territorial integrity eroded due to internal strife. Sargon's successors faced multiple simultaneous uprisings repeatedly. Resource allocation divided between suppressing revolts and administration. Military overstretched and morale declined significantly. Strategic priorities became reactive rather than proactive consistently. Civil uprisings inspired neighboring regions to challenge Akkad. Rebellion became contagious and difficult to contain. Empire faced internal threats alongside growing external pressures. Stability deteriorated rapidly across the Akkadian realm. Urban populations sometimes supported rebels against distant rulers. Economic grievances, high taxes, and labor obligations fueled revolt. Common citizens played active role in resistance movements. Civil unrest became intertwined with political ambition systematically. Suppression campaigns relied on force, sometimes harshly applied. Rebellion met with violence, punishments, and executions consistently. Military responses strained resources and destabilized local governance. Cycle of rebellion and suppression weakened empire overall. Prolonged internal conflict disrupted trade and agriculture significantly. Food production suffered, and markets became unreliable. Economic decline compounded political instability further. Empire's foundation eroded through internal dissent gradually. Through rebellions and uprisings, Akkad's control diminished steadily. Central authority could not enforce obedience across provinces. Fragmentation of power set stage for eventual collapse. Northern tribes threatened Akkad's borders repeatedly. Gutians exploited internal weakness and unrest strategically. Raids disrupted trade, agriculture, and communication consistently. Empire struggled to repel invaders across regions. Gutian warriors attacked cities with sudden ferocity. Fortresses and settlements faced repeated sieges. Local populations endured violence and insecurity daily. Akkad's military stretched thin, defending multiple fronts. Other neighboring tribes observed instability carefully. Coalitions formed to pressure central authority further. External threats amplified internal weaknesses significantly. Empire faced simultaneous domestic and foreign challenges. Gutians settled temporarily in fertile lands deliberately. Occupation reduced imperial control over key regions. Tribute and resources diverted to protect remaining territories. Economic strain compounded military and administrative challenges. Akkadian armies countered invasions with limited success. Skirmishes and defensive campaigns slowed progress gradually. Reinforcements often arrived too late to secure victory. Empire relied on strategy rather than numerical superiority. Tribal knowledge of terrain gave invaders advantage. Mountain and river passages facilitated rapid movements. Akkadian forces faced logistical difficulties consistently. Geography amplified challenges for central authority. Gutian incursions disrupted irrigation and agricultural systems. Canals, dams, and fields suffered damage frequently. Food shortages worsened public unrest in cities. Economic disruption reinforced political instability across the empire. Diplomacy sometimes attempted with hostile neighbors cautiously. Treaties, gifts, and marriages aimed to secure peace. Limited success tempered long-term effectiveness of negotiation strategies. Empire could not fully integrate or control tribal groups. Local governors sometimes collaborated with tribes secretly. Provinces rebelled or aligned with invaders opportunistically. Empire faced betrayal and shifting alliances internally. Internal and external threats intertwined dangerously over time. Gushing pressure weakened border defenses permanently. Military resources drained by repeated skirmishes and campaigns. Empire lost strategic cities and communication lines. Central authority could not maintain full territorial integrity. Tribal raids impacted trade routes severely. Caravans and markets disrupted by frequent attacks. Economic networks strained, reducing wealth and supplies. Empire struggled to sustain military and urban centers. Repeated invasions demoralized soldiers and citizens consistently. Fear and uncertainty spread across urban and rural areas. Population growth and productivity declined gradually. Empire's foundation eroded from external and internal pressures. Akkadian kings attempted counteroffensives with mixed results. Fortifications reinforced, but invaders often bypassed defenses. Military campaigns became reactive rather than proactive strategically. Empire's ability to enforce borders steadily diminished. Pressure from neighbors accelerated central authority decline. Combined with rebellion, empire faced systemic collapse. Akkad weakened under relentless internal and external stress. Foundation of empire destabilized, paving way for fall. Through Gutian and tribal pressure relentlessly. Akkad's political, military, and economic systems strained. Empire struggled to maintain control and cohesion. External threats hastened the empire's eventual collapse. Internal rebellion fractured empire's unity completely. Provincial governors ignored royal commands routinely. Civil unrest weakened administrative and military control. Central authority could no longer enforce law. External invasions compounded existing internal instability. Gutians and neighboring tribes raided repeatedly. Key cities fell under foreign occupation quickly. Empire struggled to defend strategic locations consistently. Trade and agriculture collapsed under constant disruption. Canals and fields became neglected or destroyed. Food shortages worsened public unrest dramatically. Economic collapse accelerated empire's decline further. Royal succession disputes intensified political fragmentation. Rival claimants vied for throne aggressively. Civil war erupted among royal family members. Conflict distracted rulers from defending empire effectively. Urban centers suffered from both attack and famine. Population declined as citizens fled or perished. Markets and workshops ceased functioning reliably. Economic networks disintegrated across Akkad rapidly. Military forces could not repel multiple threats. Armies weakened by internal strife and logistical issues. Soldiers defected or joined local rulers opportunistically. Empire lost its capacity for coordinated defense. Religious and cultural institutions struggled to maintain cohesion. Temples lost funding and priestly oversight decreased. Faith could not unify population amid chaos. Spiritual authority could not stabilize crumbling administration. Key infrastructure, including walls and palaces, deteriorated. Fortifications fell to both rebels and invaders. Royal palaces abandoned or captured by opponents. Empire's symbolic and physical strength eroded entirely. Provincial uprisings accelerated fragmentation of central control. Cities declared independence or aligned with new powers. Akkad's territories split into smaller, self-governing regions. Empire ceased to function as unified state. Historical records note famine and social disruption. Mass migration weakened urban centers and rural areas. Population decline reduced tax revenues significantly. Economic resources dwindled under combined pressures consistently. Collapse of Akkad marked end of centralized authority. Political, military, and administrative systems disintegrated simultaneously. Empire became vulnerable to complete external domination. Mesopotamia entered period of fragmented city-state rule. Legacy of infrastructure and culture endured beyond collapse. Irrigation, trade routes, and administrative practices persisted. Knowledge of governance influenced successor civilizations gradually. Even in ruins, Akkad shaped future Mesopotamian states through internal strife and relentless invasions systematically. Empire could not recover its former power. Collapse around 2154 BCE ended Akkadian dominance permanently. Civilization survived only in memory, influence, and record. Akkad established model for imperial governance consistently. Centralized administration inspired later Babylonian rulers systematically. Assyrians adapted military and bureaucratic strategies successfully. Empire served as blueprint for regional control efficiently. Standardized weights, measures, and taxation influenced successors. Trade regulations guided economic policy in future states. Infrastructure planning informed urban development strategies permanently. Irrigation and canals inspired continued agricultural management. Cuneiform and record-keeping preserved legal and cultural knowledge. Scribes trained in Akkadian methods shaped later administration. Libraries and archives became foundation for a future learning. Written tradition maintained political and social continuity. Religious and political ideology informed royal authority. Divine kingship concept continued in Babylon and Assyria. Integration of local and imperial gods influenced theology. Faith legitimized rulers for generations consistently. Military organization and strategy inspired later empires greatly. Standing armies, chariots, and siege tactics replicated frequently. Akkadian campaigns provided lessons for expansion and conquest. Professional soldiers shaped military structure of Mesopotamia. City planning and monumental architecture influenced subsequent capitals. Palaces, temples, and walls set precedents for design. Urban aesthetics combined functionality and imperial symbolism. Future cities reflected Akkad's architectural legacy effectively. Legal codification and bureaucratic administration guided successors. Laws and governance frameworks influenced policy decisions clearly. Codified regulations maintained order in Babylonian and Assyrian states. Standardized procedures reinforced centralized power successfully. Trade networks connected regions across Mesopotamia effectively. Routes and economic integration inspired future commerce strategies. Cultural and technological exchange continued along established pathways. Economic cohesion became essential for later imperial expansion. Literature, hymns, and epics influenced writing traditions. Storytelling shaped cultural identity and historical consciousness. Epic narratives served as moral and political guides. Oral and written culture preserved memory of Akkad. Artistic achievements influenced sculpture, reliefs, and seals. Cylinder seals and statues inspired later Mesopotamian artisans. Iconography continued to symbolize kingship and divine authority. Art reinforced continuity of political and spiritual messages. Irrigation and water management informed long-term agricultural planning. Knowledge passed to engineers and local administrators effectively. Sustainable practices maintained fertility of Mesopotamian lands. Techniques endured across centuries, shaping future societies. Akkadian language influenced diplomacy and administration across regions. Lingua franca persisted in international correspondence and treaties. Akkadian grammar and script informed subsequent literary production. Language bridged cultures, ensuring legacy of communication. Festivals, rituals, and religious practices influenced successors. Ceremonial integration reinforced unity in Babylonian and Assyrian realms. Public worship, offerings, and priestly roles maintained tradition. Cultural continuity strengthened political legitimacy over time. Akkadian model provided lessons in resilience and collapse. Successors learned strategies for governance, expansion, and defense. Failure offered cautionary insights into internal and external pressures. Legacy shaped political thought and imperial strategy permanently, through law, military, art, and culture systematically. Akkad's influence resonated in Mesopotamian civilizations for centuries. Babylon and Assyria adopted and adapted its innovations. Empire's enduring impact shaped the region's historical trajectory. Akkad established the first model of empire. Kings ruled through law, army, and religion. Centralized governance united diverse Mesopotamian city-states. Authority balanced power between royal and provincial offices. Administrative innovations ensured effective control over territories. Bureaucracy maintained records, taxes, and resources. Scribes documented trade, military, and legal matters. Information flowed efficiently across distant provinces reliably. Royal authority combined secular and divine legitimacy. Kings acted as representatives of the gods. Divine sanction reinforced obedience and political hierarchy. Spiritual ideology underpinned governance and social order. Tribute and taxation supported army and infrastructure. Surplus resources funded monumental architecture projects. Temples, palaces, and walls symbolized strength and unity. Urban planning reflected both functionality and imperial vision. Military organization maintained empire's dominance strategically. Professional soldiers trained in tactics and siege warfare. Specialized units deployed for defense and conquest effectively. Armies projected power across northern and southern regions. Akkadian kings pioneered diplomatic communication systems systematically. Language standardized across provinces for administration and negotiation. Cuneiform tablets preserved treaties, letters, and decrees permanently. Akkadian became lingua franca in Mesopotamia and beyond. Legal codification structured society and maintained order. Written laws guided behavior and resolved disputes efficiently. Codified governance ensured consistency and fairness across empire. Justice reinforced legitimacy of royal authority systematically. Cultural achievements reflected empire's sophistication visibly. Cylinder seals, statues, and reliefs documented political power. Artistic expression combined religious, social, and political messages. Visual culture communicated authority to citizens and neighbors. Literature and hymns promoted ideology and loyalty consistently. Epic tales celebrated kings, gods, and imperial achievements. Narratives reinforced societal values and historical memory clearly. Writing preserved knowledge for future generations permanently. Irrigation, urban planning, and infrastructure supported prosperity. Technological innovation enabled agricultural surplus and city growth. Canals, reservoirs, and roads integrated empire's economy efficiently. Engineering achievements demonstrated practical and strategic expertise consistently. Libraries and archives preserved administrative, religious, and literary knowledge. Scribes ensured continuity of law, culture, and technology. Education trained bureaucrats to maintain empire effectively. Written memory safeguarded legacy beyond physical empire. Despite eventual collapse, Akkad left enduring lessons. Weak succession and internal strife led to downfall. Invasions and rebellions tested resilience of centralized power. Empire fell around 2154 BCE after centuries of strength. Even in decline, cultural and administrative structures persisted. Neighboring civilizations adopted Akkadian innovations in governance. Babylon and Assyria learned from administrative, military, and legal models. Empire influenced Mesopotamian political thought and imperial practice. Akkad shaped military strategies for future empires strategically. Standing armies, chariots, and siege techniques became templates. Professional organization inspired successors across Near Eastern civilizations. Empire demonstrated how centralized power could project influence effectively. Economic integration and trade networks influence future commerce. Standardization and resource management guided later empires systematically. Akkadian innovations in logistics and taxation informed successors. Empire created foundation for a durable economic and political systems. Religious integration provided framework for societal cohesion. Syncretism balanced local and imperial deities efficiently. Faith legitimized rulers and united diverse populations. Spiritual ideology became blueprint for later civilizations. Art, architecture, and writing preserved memory and prestige. Monuments and tablets narrated achievements and cultural identity. Visual and written culture reinforced authority and ideology consistently. Legacy endured despite empire's short-lived political power, through language, law, and administration systematically. Akkad influenced governance across Mesopotamia and Near East. Empire demonstrated enduring principles of authority, unity, and innovation. Its model echoed in civilizations for centuries. Akkad's pioneering governance provided lessons in organization. Central authority balanced regional autonomy and imperial oversight. Administrative and military systems ensured cohesion and stability. Empire illustrated the potential of structured centralized power. Innovations in irrigation, urban planning, and trade persisted. Agricultural surplus and connectivity supported societal growth. Engineering solutions informed future city building and resource management. Technical knowledge became part of collective cultural memory. Akkad's cultural, legal, and military innovations were foundational. Subsequent empires learned, adapted, and refined Akkadian systems. Influence spread across Mesopotamia and neighboring regions steadily. Empire's principles shaped political and societal structures permanently. Although Akkad's reign lasted only centuries briefly, its impact resonated through thousands of years. Civilizations remembered lessons of authority, administration, and innovation. The echo of the First Empire endured eternally.